All right, we're ready to start into our last unit of Bio 20. And I just wanted to say a couple things before we get started. Number one, we're going to move pretty quick. Now, in order to keep us under the 3 hours a week, or about that 3 hours a week worth of material, we're not going to be able to go into any of this stuff nearly as in depth as we would be able to if we were in class, or maybe as much as I would like to, or maybe as much as you would like to. So I'm going to touch the highlights, the things I think that are most important, the things that will be on the tests and things like that. There's more detail in your notes. If you want to dive deeper into that, please do. If you have any questions about anything that you want to dive into personally, let me know and I can dive into that stuff just for those who are interested. But otherwise, we're just going to kind of touch the highlights of a lot of these notes. So make sure you read through the notes because I'm not going to talk about everything. But the things we do cover in the videos will be the more important things that you need to focus on in terms of being ready for the test. Now, in terms of just general knowledge, I think it's all good. Read it all up, ask questions, just goodness, it's all good stuff. Human body, love it. But if there is anything for the test, at least if you're worried about that part, just focus on what's covered in the videos and you should be fine. The other part I wanted to point out is I made a very poor life choice this morning. This looks like I'm wearing a blue shirt. It's not. I wore a green shirt. I'm actually clear right now, so I'm gonna go change my shirt really quick and then I will be right back. So let's see if this works. All right, we're back. So let's go ahead and jump into the motor system. In your notes there, the first thing we're going to talk about is how the muscles are an important part of all the other systems. We haven't gone through the other systems, but I wanted to do this first because as we go through those systems, you'll see how the stuff we do talk about in the motor system is going to show up in every single other body system. That there are muscles involved in helping those systems either be supported or work properly or whatever it might be. So let's go ahead and just jump in. So in your notes, you've got 3 different types of muscles, and that's what I'm kind of showing here. And we're going to draw a picture of each in these boxes, which you should draw to the right of your notes. So the first one is smooth muscle. So let me go ahead and just write that in here, smooth. And smooth muscle is long, tapered, meaning they go down to like a point at each end, kind of cells. And they usually form in sheets that we find in your organs and stuff like that. So to draw that, just kind of draw something like that kind of tapers out on each end. And just draw, you know, kind of a bunch of those kind of shapes all in here, sort of just together. However you want to put them. Something along that line. You don't have to necessarily fill the whole space if you don't want to, but you get kind of the idea. Long tapered cells, and they all have just one nucleus. So in each of these, just draw a little spot that signifies the nucleus somewhere in each of those cells. These are non-striated. Now, striated means striped. We'll talk about why the other ones are striated later on. For now, just know that the smooth muscle is not striped at all. It's just all kind of the same color. They're usually arranged in parallel lines, forming sheets like we've kind of shown here. They're all running the same direction. They're involuntary. So most, or probably all of your smooth muscle, you don't really control. It just happens. And when we get into the organ systems, we'll talk about where that is. But one example is your stomach. You don't have to think about like churning and mixing and digesting your food. You just swallow and then everything else takes care of itself. These are a slower contraction, so they're not really like twitchy kind of muscles. They're really slow moving, but they also don't fatigue easily, right? You don't, like, your stomach's not going to get tired from churning food. It does it kind of slowly, just mixing it, but because it does it slowly, it can do that for a very, very long time. Your blood vessels aren't going to get tired of adjusting to your blood pressure. They can handle it. So that's the smooth muscle, and that's what you're going to be kind of looking at. The next one is cardiac. And cardiac means the heart. So this kind of muscle is only found in the heart. Nowhere else in the human body do we have this. And it has a branched-like structure. So when you draw this, it's going to be kind of like something that goes out like this, and then maybe it branches off, and then there's another one over here, and then one over here that branches out this way and then connects to something else, and like it's kind of like that. They're not just all running in the same direction. There's kind of more like almost like a net-like kind of structure of branching where these cells are kind of connected to one another. These also still only have the one nucleus. There are some connection points sometimes between these. Draw another one maybe here. So these are actually individual cells that form this weird kind of branching network, but they also connect to each other, and that's important when we talk about the heart in the next section, probably next week. But each of these sections would just have one nucleus in it, kind of like that. These ones are tubular, meaning they're like a cylinder. If you could pull out one of these, it would look like a tube. And they are striated. So we could draw some little kind of a striped pattern to these. Again, we'll talk about why those striations are there later on, but for now, just know that you would see this kind of a striped pattern if you were to look at it. And these are also involuntary. You don't think about your heart, it just takes care of itself. In fact, your heart doesn't even need your brain. As long as the heart has oxygen and food, the heart sets its own basic heartbeat. We'll get into that more when we do the heart as well, but this is completely involuntary. And the last one's the one we probably think about the most, and that's skeletal muscle. So these are the muscles that move our skeleton, right? Like your biceps and your pecs and your quads and calves and things like that. That is this kind of muscle. These are very long muscle cells. In fact, each muscle cell runs all the way from where the muscle starts to where it ends. So if you think about a bicep, like that muscle cell runs from your shoulder all the way down to your forearm. If you think about like a leg cell, maybe your quads or your hamstrings, those are very long muscle cells. They go all the way from your hip down to below your knee. It could be a single muscle cell. So these are quite long. They're multinucleate, which means that they have many nuclei, where these other two only had one. And they are also tubular and striated, but because they're basically only go in one direction, they're just tubes kind of stacked like this. Like imagine a bunch of pop cans just lined up really, really close together like this. These have a very, very strong striated appearance to them. So there's lots of banding. If you were to look under a microscope, this is kind of what you would see. But even though each of these is probably only one cell, one muscle fiber, they're multinucleate. So there would be a nucleus maybe here, and another one there, and there, and there, and kind of all over the place. And that's probably due to the fact that these cells are so long. Because if it was only one nucleus that had the instructions on how to, say, repair that muscle after a workout, or after you've had an injury of some kind, if that nucleus, let's say the nucleus on my bicep was way down here, but the repair, the stuff that needed to happen was way up here in that muscle, it wouldn't be a very efficient way of getting the signals all the way up there. So the multinucleate nature of this allows you to have kind of multiple control centers all along the way. If there happens to be repair or other things that needs to happen, it can happen more efficiently on these really, really long kind of cells like this. And these ones are voluntary. These ones, I mean, they can twitch a little bit and do some on their own involuntarily with reflexes. But for the most part, these are our voluntary muscles. You're thinking about moving your hand, your arms, your neck. Those are voluntary muscles. And we often talk about skeletal muscle as muscle fibers rather than muscle cells. And that'll kind of show up a little bit here in just a second. The other part is to remember that when muscles contract, when you tell a muscle to flex, all it can do is shorten. So when we get into that, we talk about what we call antagonistic muscles. So a muscle can only pull. So for example, the bicep muscle, if I flex that muscle, it will pull my arm this way. If I want to make my arm extend, I can't use my biceps to push my arm out. It only pulls. So if I want to make my arm go out, I have to flex my tricep muscle, which pulls the back of my forearm around my elbow, trying to pull it towards there, and so my arm extends. But every muscle is only a pull. Even if you were to do a push-up, what you're really doing is pulling your forearm, or your arm, sorry, towards your chest by flexing your pec muscles, and you're extending your arm by pulling on your tricep muscles. So just keep that in mind. Muscles can only pull. So in order to do things like push and pull, having both motions, our muscles are arranged in antagonistic pairs, many of them. And this is a perfect example, the biceps and the triceps. If you want my arm to go this way, I pull here. If I want my arm to go this way, I pull here. And you have those kind of pairs all over your body. Your quadriceps and your hamstrings, your abs and your back muscles. Even in the eyes, the muscles that control your pupil, there are muscles that make your pupil get bigger, and there's muscles that make your pupil get smaller. Those are all antagonistic pairs. So just be aware of that term. The other thing is to just be aware of the functions of skeletal muscle. So in your notes, there's 4 listed there. The first one is it supports your body. So just right now, muscle is just holding you together. It's kind of keeping your organs where they're supposed to be. It's keeping you upright. If you're sitting upright, maybe you're just lounging on the couch. If so, I'm jealous. But it just keeps everything where it's supposed to be. Even your face muscles right now, you're not thinking about it, but these muscles are all slightly flexed right now. If they weren't, your face would actually kind of like sag down a little bit. And that's one sign that someone might be having a stroke or have Bell's palsy or something, because when the muscle really relaxes, your face actually droops. But even your arms, your legs, everything right now is slightly flexed so that it's ready to go, but also because it helps support your structure, keep your body in shape. In the shape it should, not in shape like working out. It makes the bones move. That one's pretty obvious. It helps maintain a constant body temperature. So your body will change how much it uses muscle depending on whether it's too hot or too cold. So we all know if it gets too cold, you'll start to shiver. Your body will make those muscles contract and shake a little bit to generate some extra heat. If it's really hot, your body will try not to use your muscles. It will kind of want to relax and just try to cool off. And the last one I kind of mentioned was support the body. It helps protect the internal organs and stabilize the joints, just holding everything in its place where it should go. So there's a good introduction to the different types of muscles. Make sure you know those different types and what they're each used for and how to identify them if you were to see them. And then we'll jump more into how they work and how they're structured in the next video.